Okay, well, I have Alex on the podcast today. Alex, welcome.
Hi, guys.
We are here to talk about HoneyBook because we had an episode planned all about HoneyBook. And then we figured with the new kind of topic of conversation around it that we would shift our conversation around it too. So we are literally just here today to have a conversation about our thoughts on HoneyBook in general and the changes that are going on. We're just going to have a conversation.
Yeah. So it might be controversial. Don't hate us. Don't hate our opinions.
But who knows? Maybe it's not. Like we're gonna just chat and just talk it all out and we're just talking. This is a new unfolding situation. So
I know. And it's so funny because, like, nobody knows what to think or what to feel. And this is just like grabbing coffee with us, I feel like, and just chatting around a table of like how we feel about stuff and where we're at currently with it. And things might change too. Things might shift. You literally have your coffee.
I literally have my coffee. It's
I
right
know.
here.
I have water today, but I have my water. You have your coffee,
I will say this is cold coffee from this morning. So
So it's fine. But you have it in hand. You have it in hand.
yes, I love it. It's a total coffee chat. And this is so new that even what we're saying today, like our opinions or our actions might also change in the future. But this is just like we had this podcast episode scheduled. So we're just going to talk about it anyways.
Yeah, and we were gonna do like tips for HoneyBook, so we might do that at a later date. But for today, we were like, let's just rip the band-aid off and chat. Like, let's just talk about how we feel about everything.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. And I feel like and Alex's opinions and my opinions, like we're just kind of sharing, and it's not like we're coming together on like one stance together. Like if I have thoughts, I'm just saying them. If Alex has thoughts, she's just saying them, and we're just
Yeah,
chatting. It's almost like an open conversation. I hope people listening almost just feel like they're again like just at the table with us talking about it
totally.
because that's really what we're doing right now.
I love it.
Which I
Yeah, and we're
love.
gonna share like our thoughts and
Yeah.
also like the thoughts that you guys have. DM us, talk to us. Like it is an open conversation. Like think of this as like a round table, you know? Like it's not just us chatting and you listening in your car. Like at a red light when you're not driving, hop in our DMs and tell us what you think too.
Yes, and I love that, which is a total switch up from my normal episodes because my normal episodes are like, we get right into it. We do the
Yeah.
actionable steps. It's like, this is totally not that episode. This is
I love
conversation
it.
with chit
I
chat.
love that this happens to be the one I'm
I
on for.
know. I know. I love it. So, yeah, first of all, I just want to say, like, I don't think there's any right or wrong decision, whether people are wanting to stay or leave or just do whatever. But I think just to start too, that I don't think like both sides are valid. I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. Opinions can change. But I think everyone's situation is different based on their specific price change,
100%.
their
Yeah.
finances, their business goals, their ideal clients, who are they working with, like what their business growth is. Everyone's going to be different, you know?
Totally. Yeah, there's so many different things. And even like how long you've been using HoneyBook matters too. Like how many clients you have in their base matters and how much work it would take to switch if you're thinking about that. Like there's so many different factors to it that like there really isn't a right or wrong to this.
There really isn't. And so I figured, what if we just kind of talk about like literally the pros and the cons? Like, what if we start with maybe reasons why someone would stay, and then we'll talk about reasons why someone would maybe switch. So, like, just starting with like reasons someone should stay. Like, I'll let you go first because
Okay. I'm
I
like,
have,
oh,
I have a few too. I can always go first too. But what's off the top of your head? Like, what do you
yeah.
feel like?
Yeah. I think for me personally, the biggest thing, I kind of just said it there, but like how many clients I have already in my systems. I mean, I use HoneyBook for absolutely everything, right? So the biggest thing to me is like I would have to transfer over all of that stuff to something else. And to me, the amount of time that it would take for me to do that equals out to the amount extra that I would pay HoneyBook for it. Like
Right.
it just doesn't make sense to me to switch in that kind of area of like how much work it would take to transfer over my clients, my automations, my templates, like all of these things that I built in my business. It would take forever to switch it for me. Is that the same for you?
It's the same for me because it's ever used HoneyBook, really. I've done free trials of other programs like way in the past, way in the beginning. But yeah, everything I have is within HoneyBook. And so my thoughts exactly of the time and energy it would take for me to switch and implement and start all that in another program. It's like for me, I'm heading into there's no really slow season for me necessarily, but also in a time where maybe I do want to prioritize rest because I'm not shooting as many weddings. Or maybe
Yeah.
right now I want to focus on some lead generation and some visibility and some marketing. And for me, using HoneyBook, just the overall fact that I use HoneyBook is not preventing a client from booking me. So it has no impact on my booking and my income generating activity. And so to me, it's not holding me back from making more money. Do you know what I mean in that sense? And so like why would I switch that? If it was like a program where it's like, yeah, this is literally like I'm not getting any business from it, then that
Right,
would almost
right.
be different for me, but I agree with
Yeah.
you, it's like that time and energy I wanna put into what's gonna bring me more visibility and more leads and more
Yeah, that's so
business.
good. Yeah, I feel the same way. I think a lot of the time too, I will say during like slow season or whatever you want to call it, I tend to focus on organization stuff too, of like how I want to not just market for the next year, but also like build my business for the next year. And I feel like it would be like going a step backwards for me if I had to redo that on something else. Like say it's Dipsato or what's that other one, Hat 17 or something
17
like
hat,
that.
yep,
Yeah,
yep,
17 Hat. But, like, there are other options out there, but for me to undo everything I've already done, redo it, and then not get any further in my organization, like, I can't take steps forward if I'm having to redo stuff or start from
right.
scratch, you know?
Right. It sounds like you and I are in similar spaces with that, and someone else might not be, and we can kinda get into that of, like, what that would look like. And another thing that I thought I don't know if we've talked about this or not to you and I, but, like, say you do leave and you go to another program, who's to say that program's not gonna raise their prices eventually
Mm,
too?
true. Yeah.
And you do all that time
Mm.
and effort and energy and work into switching, and for
Yeah.
what? That's
I would be curious to know, I haven't looked up this, but I know for HoneyBook, this is their very first price raise ever. They've never raised their price before. So, I'm curious if some of those other CRMs have raised their prices in the past and how often they do it. Because one thing that I have, like, gotten a lot of comments about and people messaging me about is like, "Oh, I don't like how much they raise their price," which is a huge thing. So I guess that's a con. Sorry, I guess we're going back over.
no, that's
We're
fine.
jumping around now.
We
But
can switch back, we can switch.
but with that, like, they don't like how much they raised it. Well, my question is, would it have been better if they'd raised it a little bit over time? Because it's not a problem that people raise their prices, just like it's not
Right.
a problem that we as photographers raise our prices, right? And so to me, I'm like, "Oh, well, if they had done it like, smaller bits over time, would there be such a reaction to this, and would that be okay? And has some of the competitors done that? Because if so, they're likely gonna continue to do it, and we might end up paying the same amount going somewhere else too, you know?"
And that's such a good point too, and that's where I love this because there are valid points from each side, and I love that so much because, yeah, like you said, is it the way that they went about the price increase? Is it yeah, like you said, if it was little bits over time, would that change people's opinions and stuff, which
Right.
I
It's just
like.
curious to think about. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's good to talk about too because that might make people like sway their opinion too. But then it also is kind of funny because I don't know, just in the photography space in general, I feel like it's a lot of like, oh, you should raise your prices or
Mm,
you should
yeah.
charge more. Like we kind of encourage each other, be like, oh, you're worth more, you should charge more and all that stuff. That I feel like this industry is very much so like that mindset. So I find it kind of funny that a program that you use so much in your business raises their price and then there's such an uproar on it. So like I think that, but then I've also seen people say take that point and then say, well,
Mhm.
the difference is this is a big like multi-million
Yes.
dollar company and like we're small business owners. So that's literally my point where there's just two sides to every
Yeah, yeah.
argument, which is kind of fun. That's why we can talk
Yeah.
about this because
The other thing
literally
too that I've seen on that point, because I thought that originally too, like, well, I raise my prices, so, like, isn't it okay that they do theirs too? But somebody said something that was a good thought, and it goes back to what I was saying before too, is, like, they're raising it by 85% for some people. And it depends on the plan that you have. But if they're raising the price by 85%, that's a lot, you know? And chances are when we're raising our prices, it's likely not by 85%, you know?
Right.
So again, our clients might feel different, you know, or how we cheer
Right.
people on and raising their prices might look different if it's an 85% increase. That's not to say that's not bad at all. And I'm personally probably not going to switch from HoneyBook, even though it's a high increase, but it's just good, you know, to kind of think about from the other side too.
Totally. And that's a really good point that you say, Alex, because I want to talk about everyone is talking so much about the percent increase and not about the actual number. Because like the conversations I've had with people, they're like, well, they increased my price by 40%. And I'm like, okay, but what's the number? Like 40%, but what by how much money? And she said, well, $16. So it's like they're
Yeah.
using the percentage, not the actual number. So it's like
Yeah.
if it's $16, I don't know if it's per month, per year, like that's here's the thing, everyone's plan is different. So it's
Yeah.
just different. Like for me personally, it was the first year was $70 a year increase. And so whatever that, breaks down to. But I think a lot of people are focused on the percentage increase instead of like, no, what's the actual number? $16. Was that like 3 or 4 coffees?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think mine, if I remember right, I think mine is $150 because I pay annually. And so, you know, I think I paid something like 400 and now I'm paying 150 more. And then for the first year I do get that like 20% discount that they're giving all of their members, which I
Yeah.
know some people are upset about, but it's kind of nice also to
Yeah.
have the 20%, you know. And
Yeah.
maybe for the people that are leaving, having that 20% is great because it gives you a whole year to only pay, you know,
Uh-huh.
that much while you're transitioning some of your clients over to the new software that you pick out too. So maybe it's kind of a good buffer time for the people that are kind of in mass exodus of HoneyBook right now, you know?
Yeah, and I actually thought that was nice of them to do, you know what I mean? It gives a little bit of a buffer for exactly what you said, like, if you wanted to switch, which I think now is kinda good to talk about, like, what to do, like, reasons to switch, like, why would it make sense for someone to want to switch? Because 'Cause I've heard a lot of people say, "Well, the program itself already felt clunky to me. I already didn't
Yeah.
really love it." Maybe it's someone who didn't already have all their automations and workflows and clients set in that program, then it would totally
Mhm.
make sense. If you
Totally.
didn't already love it, if you didn't already have your automations like and clients already set in there, and you were already maybe like, maybe I want to get established with another program that's maybe less money as I get started, then to me that totally makes sense to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I think there's an interesting piece to this because with HoneyBook raising their prices, I do feel like it's a little bit harder for the beginner to begin in HoneyBook. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how that like takes on a life of its own over time because I know we were both saying we've never used anything other than HoneyBook.
Yeah.
We started with HoneyBook and now here we are, you know, and as
Yeah.
our business has grown, HoneyBook has grown with us. But it will be interesting to see if beginners can't afford HoneyBook, then obviously they're not going to be using it at first. Are they just going to stay with what they begin to know, or will they one day eventually transition to HoneyBook? You know, that'll be interesting to see. But I definitely think if you're a beginner and you can't quite afford that, then yeah, it's a total reason to switch.
I agree. And you know what's interesting about that? Because it's something else I've seen too. It's like you were saying, if it's harder for the beginner, it's not going to be appealing for beginners, but then it's also not really going to be appealing for like the higher end, more of like premium luxury, higher end photographers that work with planners because I have heard that
Hmm.
planners do not like HoneyBook. Like it doesn't integrate well.
Really?
They despise it. Like it does not work well with them. And so it's like if it's not beneficial to newer photographers, but it's also not beneficial to the higher level photographers either. It's like, well, then who is their middle ground, like ideal photographer client that they're trying to speak, have use their program essentially. I'm interrupting my own episode to give you a quick glimpse into my signature coaching program created for established photographers wanting to double to quadruple their prices, book their highest package, and bring in inquiries consistently. This is my high level container of go-to photographers who are making huge waves in the industry. And the biggest difference in this program is that we get a full 12 months together for deep dive transformation, weekly coaching call support, 4 coaches in the program to deep dive into specific topics, and a content retreat all included in one program. And I always say if you can book one extra wedding from your year in the program together, you're going to see your ROI. And it's just the weekly norm wins for my students. So I'm fully confident that you're going to be able to do that and way, way more. And this is an application, phone call, and acceptance process only type of program. So if you are curious if this is the right next steps for you to just blow up your business this year, you can fill out the application at racheltrexler.com/apply or get the link in the show notes. I'll be in touch shortly after you fill it out so that we can talk through together if this is the right fit for you. I'm very honest with people and I want this to be a great fit for everyone involved. That's just my heart behind the way I do this process. And I also think that's why my students just see so much success in this program. So don't just be in information consumption overload this year. I want you to be an action taker and start implementing change into your business. So again, if this feels aligned to you, fill out the application at racheltraxler.com/apply to apply for my Passion to Profit coaching program.
That's so
So,
interesting. I haven't heard about that as far as like the planners go.
yeah, because I think it's more so like the communication aspect. Like, think
Mhm.
of like high-end clients, they don't really deal with a lot of the communication. They want the planner to do the
Sure.
communication, and it's hard to add them to contracts and communications and all of that stuff. And sometimes higher end clients, they don't want all that nurture communication going on. They you know what I mean? So it's different. And so when you're working with planners and the planners don't even like HoneyBook, I don't know.
Yeah,
So
that's interesting.
that could be a reason to switch where it's like if and I think that's what I mean with like business and growth goals. Like if your
Totally.
goal is to be like, I only want to work with planners. I have student like photographer students in my coaching program who
Yeah.
are like that. Like my goal is to only be working with wedding planners. Okay, well then maybe you do want to
Yeah, maybe this isn't for
switch
you.
from
Yeah.
HoneyBook and now is the time, to switch out of
Yeah.
that. And so I think that also just depends on that.
Yeah, and I think it's such an interesting thing. Like for me, I am very systemized, I guess would be the word for it, where like I like to pick something and stick with it so that it creates a routine in my business. And so for me, it's like, if this isn't working for you, then pick something else that does work and then stick with it, you know? And I think it'll be hard though, because if they've only ever used HoneyBook, trying something else, like it's going to have to be a trial period with that too. And if that
Yeah.
doesn't work, you have to try another one too. And if that
Yeah.
doesn't work, so it is a little bit hard, but it might be worth it if HoneyBook hasn't been working for you anyway.
Totally. And I love the idea of like stick with like find something and stick with it. And I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of like photographers and entrepreneurs in general, we get like that almost shiny object syndrome and we get stuck in like we almost create this overwhelm for ourselves of like don't just feel like this small if you love HoneyBook and it's working for you and it's $70 more a year, is it worth the headache and the switch and causing all this
Mhm.
overwhelm and energy and time and effort to put into something else when you could be focusing on something else? And so I do
Yeah.
feel like if it's going to create this overwhelm for you, like, can you get ahead of that and not do it?
Yeah.
You know?
That's good. Do you feel like this is I was just kind of thinking about this as you were talking, but there's part of it where for some people, it's a logical like thing to leave because it wasn't making sense in your business before. For others, I think it's a logical thing for them to stay because all of their clients are already in it. Like we were talking about, the kind of big con is like it's a lot of work to shift. But do you feel like emotion has anything to do with it in a way where it's like these people have wronged me and I feel upset, and so I'm gonna kinda stick it to the man and show them who's boss and leave.
Maybe. I can't speak to that because I don't know that I necessarily have those emotions, but from what I've just seen and heard and just, like, heard from people and people have opened up to me and, like, have told me stuff, I can see that, or I can at least see, like, the people who are deciding to stay, they almost feel, like, not tricked, but almost, like, upset,
Yeah.
where it's like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
just staying because it just makes sense to me, but I don't
Right. Because
love
like,
that
the
I have to
rug was
stay."
taken out from them,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
love that I have
hard.
to say, I don't love that I wasn't given insight in this. I also have seen people say, "Oh, well, they're making up for new features and stuff," but people are like, "I don't even know the new features, and I don't like the new features, I don't use
Yeah.
them."
Yeah, I've seen that too. I've seen where some people have been upset. I was looking at like TikTok videos. So this was someone's TikTok video, and then I was looking at the comments basically. But some of the comments were saying, well, they haven't come out with any new features that have like allowed them to do, like, there's nothing that they're rolling out this year along with this new price change. So it's everything I already had. But then others are saying, well, actually, they've come out with a ton of new features this year, and now you're paying for what they've already come out with. But this is, again, it goes back to, oh, if they'd done that a little bit differently, I wonder if people would
Uh-huh.
be so upset. Like if they had said, hey, we're raising our price and here are the new features you're getting with it, before they rolled them out to everyone and then increased the price. Like maybe if
Yeah.
they'd switched it a little bit, maybe that would be a difference.
I do think if they would have maybe gone about it a little differently, or even just like the fact that like Black Friday was just happened. You could have been like, "Hey, like this is part of our Black Friday sale." Because I don't know, maybe like the programs I buy or have been thinking about buying, I usually do buy them around Black Friday time because like why not? Like I'm gonna buy them anyways, do them now. And so it would have maybe been a good idea if they would have said, "Hey, this is going to be our price increase for 2025. If you want to be grandfathered into the price that you're paying right now, book
Yeah.
like renew your subscription now. Maybe be locked in at your price." I don't know. Like I'm not sure. I don't run that type of company, so I
Right.
don't want
Right.
to speak and say that they, say what they should have exactly done. But they maybe could have gone about it differently, and like you said, with the emotions that may have just softened the blow to some people.
Yeah, and I mean, for anyone who is feeling that, that's such a hard place to be in too, because honestly, like, this is a place, even though it's a business, it's a place that you put your trust in, and so when that trust is, like, failed, that's a really hard place to be in, even though logically it might make sense for you to stay, and having to navigate, like, "Okay, my emotions are saying this, but logically it makes sense to do this," like, that's just a hard place to be. I just wanna acknowledge that, you know?
It totally is. Yeah, I'm glad you said that too, because yeah, we're recognizing all emotions and all sides and can empathize with both. It's almost just like a hard situation all around. I love that we're doing this episode because it's just a fun conversation, not fun, but like it's a cool conversation to see everybody just kind of put their heads together and their brains together and just kind of see where we're at and like what we think as an industry, because it is important to kind of listen to what people's feelings and thoughts are, but then also give some insight and different perspectives too. I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it affects so many people in our industry too, because man, I feel like it's rare to meet a photographer who doesn't use HoneyBook or
Right,
who hasn't,
right.
even if they
Or don't
don't,
know
they've
what
had
it
it
is.
before. Like,
Yes.
yeah, it's kind of
Oh,
crazy.
yeah.
There are other, applications out there and management systems out there, but they
HoneyBook's the
either,
big one.
yeah, it is. And like, I think, again, I haven't used anything but HoneyBook, but
Yeah.
in my head at least, they
Yeah,
have the
exactly.
most kind of they have the most kind of stuff that you can use. They've come out with the most, and I think they have quite a bit of longevity too in comparison to other like CRM software. So,
Right,
yeah,
right.
it makes a difference.
It totally does. Should we talk about maybe some things to do if you plan to stay and some things to do if you plan to leave? So then that way, just like no matter what you decide to do, whether that's today, whether that's next year, whether that's next month, like you don't have to make any decisions like right now. But if you do, like maybe some things that you can do. And either way, because in my head, I'm thinking like, well, if you do decide to stay, you can find some ways to kind of offset the added expense that you have. Maybe look at some expenses that you have now, like some subscriptions that you maybe don't realize that you have, that is worth offsetting to keep a system and program like HoneyBook.
Yeah, that's really good. I was thinking that too, even just financially. Like, yes, it's a big jump in comparison to what it was, but ultimately, for an expense, at least to me, I feel like it is worth it. So I can rework some things in my finances to make HoneyBook work because
Right,
it's worth it to my business. So I love
right.
that you said the subscriptions because as photographers, guys, we have like a million subscriptions to everything. We have so many. But like some of them just really aren't as necessary as I feel like they are in the moment, and I to me HoneyBook is a lot more necessary than some of those things. And so I'll go cancel those in order to keep HoneyBook. Yeah.
Maybe readjusting and just reapproaching the way you have your mindset around your business too, because if you're, and I am only speaking to I know everyone's price increase is different, but if mine is for the first year, $70 more for the entire year, the year after that, $188 more for the entire year, like, am I going to get caught up in the nitpicky to be honest, in the big scheme of things, and I don't mean that, I just mean like that is a smaller expense in the big
Right.
scheme of things.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
not saying that yes, it's more money and it's impactful for people. Like I understand that, but I just like to challenge myself and photographers I work with just to think bigger. Like
Yeah.
instead of being like, "Oh, it's $70 more." Think of like, where is my next wedding booking coming from? Where is my
Right.
next $1,000 coming from? Heck, where am I making my next 10K? Like
Right.
play and think bigger as an
Big. Yeah.
entrepreneur, as a photographer. Like I feel like that's the biggest mindset change and difference between people and entrepreneurs that like kind of play victimhood or just play smaller than business owners and entrepreneurs that, make big waves and make a big impact and do things.
Yeah, like we can't allow something like this to trap us because that's our own. I mean, obviously, like, is it upsetting that maybe they did something like that to us or it feels like the rug's been pulled out from under us? Absolutely. But then what do we do to problem solve? Like, part of being an entrepreneur is learning how to problem solve. It's putting all of these puzzle pieces that are thrown our way and somehow fitting it in to be a beautiful picture of our business. And like, that is thinking big picture when we can say, okay,
Yes.
this was thrown my way. It was a curveball, wasn't expecting it, but now here's how I'm going to flip it
What am I
back so
gonna
that I can
do?
actually hit it, you know?
Yep.
And yeah, I love that because it's flipping the perspective to be one that's like of hope and of joy for our business instead of sitting in the victim mentality with it.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that.
Oh,
I think it's so good.
I couldn't have said that better myself, Alex. Like exactly what you said. Like we're just course correcting, and honestly, that's where big ideas and big business moves and impacts and waves come for me. When I'm like, "Ooh, this happened. Like, how can I get creative?" Or like, that's why I love knowing my numbers too, and just like where I'm at. I'm like, "Ooh, I'm 5K short of my goal this month or this quarter or whatever." Cool. What am I going to do to make that 5K? What can I do to make it happen? Like that's the power of knowing your numbers, and that's the power of being creative and being an entrepreneur. And so it's almost like, how can these types of things drive
Yeah.
us instead of make us fall into victimhood?
Yeah,
So
I love that you just said that. I think times where I have felt most financially unstable, even though it's fine, everything's fine, you know.
right,
But
right.
like the
Yeah.
times where I've really felt that or felt in
Yes,
panic mode about my finances have been the times where I've been the most creative in my business
yes.
because it is that question of like, okay, I'm this much short. What am I going to do?
Gotta
And
make it
some of like
happen.
the biggest things in my business have come from that. My husband Zach and I don't know that you know this, but we actually moved to Charleston 2 years ago. And I didn't have a business here. I had no clients here. And so I had to start from scratch. And it was like such a crazy thing for me where I was like, okay, here's a problem. Let's solve it, you know. And it felt like financial insecurity because I'm moving to this place like a helicopter drop, right? And here I am, and I'm just gonna have to like figure it out. And I did, you know, and like life is kind of like that. You see the problem, you solve it, we're good, guys. Everything's fine.
Exactly. Okay, well, hopefully I love that. Good for you too, and hopefully, like, people listening, if that's what they decide to do, will be like, "Okay, I'm just motivated by that." Then that, like, gives me some hope and creativity and some motivation, like a little fire under your butt. I don't know, I work well under pressure like that too, so I think that's cool. Now maybe we can talk about things to do if you do decide to switch, because if people are like, "Okay, love this, but I'm still leaving and I'm going to find something else." Something that comes to my mind first is just obviously having maybe like a Google Doc or like having all of your templates and everything that you have within your
Mm-hmm.
workflow. If you already have your workflow set up, maybe you don't, and then this will be easier for you, but just have it
Right.
all ready to go and integrated. But then also having everything like have emails prepped and ready to send to your
Yeah.
clients. Make sure that your clients are prepped and educated and knowing things are switching, knowing this is where their contracts are going to be found now, that knowing maybe doing a video Loom walkthrough for your
Mm-hmm.
clients to be like, hey, things are changing for you on the back end, but here's a video walkthrough, like providing your client like resources, I guess, to do that. That's kind of one thing that I thought if would be helpful.
And I think like maybe taking HoneyBook up on the 20% off for the year could be an important thing. Cause like I said earlier, it does just give you a buffer if you want to switch. And that way you don't feel pigeonholed. Cause like what you don't want either is for your clients to feel shaky, like they can't quite trust what you're doing because you booked a wedding with them a year out and then you're changing your CRM twice in the year, you know, and
Yeah.
having to send them a video or whatever. Cause if you switch from HoneyBook to something else, what if you don't like this something else. So
Right.
giving yourself that year, maybe doing a couple free trials at a time on something, kind of looking it over, seeing if you like it. And then when you make the switch, you're switching, not for good, of course, like you can switch anything, but you know what I'm saying, where
Love
it's
that.
like,
Yeah, I
okay,
love
this
that
is
idea.
kind of what I like and I already know that. And that way your clients know that this is what they can put their trust in a little bit.
Yeah, love that idea. Almost like your advice comes first, and then I feel like what I just said would come second.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
do what Alex said first and make sure that
yeah.
you like it,
Step
and
one.
then if you like it, then you can, like, make videos and resources and stuff like
Yeah.
that, but yeah, don't go making all these videos and resources when you're gonna maybe switch 2 different times, like,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah. Do you have any ideas? I know I already mentioned Dubsado and 17 Hat or whatever it was. Do you have any others off the top of your head?
I have been talking to Sprout Studio for, like, ever. Like, they've always been in the back of my mind forever. I've always used and loved HoneyBook, but I have talked to Sprout Studio so many times, and so that's one that comes to my mind
I
on that.
know some people talk about Unscripted, Pixie Set, and CloudSpot. Have you ever heard of CloudSpot before?
I have. I've heard of these things. I'm hesitant with, like, the amount of, like, automation and, like,
Yes.
scheduling features
Yeah,
and
that's exactly what I was gonna say too.
yeah.
I the people that I've heard like it are beginners. So maybe if you're in that beginner boat, you don't even know if you're like really wanting to continue with photography, you're just kind of doing it as a side hobby. Maybe that's a good option for you price-wise for right now. And then as you begin to outgrow those things in your business, you begin to look for something maybe level 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's really good too, because like, again, that's just gonna depend on where people are at and how much they have, like, invested in terms of automations and stuff like that. So that's a really good point too. If you're just kinda getting started, getting your feet going, that's
Yeah,
really good resources.
I
Yeah,
love it.
I love that idea. Yeah, I don't know, I just think if you do plan on switching, just making sure that you're maybe okay with putting that effort and energy into doing that in your off season versus maybe the back end and organizing and growing and visibility and marketing and lead generation. Kind of goes back to like what I was my mindset too of it's not preventing me from booking, so it's not preventing me from income generating activity right now. That's just me. That's totally just me. And so I don't know, it depends what you want to be doing with the upcoming
Right,
months in your business and
right.
that's going to look different for everyone.
Yeah, something I was thinking about as you were talking is I guess it couldn't be a bad thing too to maybe hire somebody to just like migrate all of your stuff over. But at the same time, that I mean, that's a one time fee versus an annual fee or a monthly fee coming from HoneyBook. But maybe that's a good idea too, just to think about. I mean, obviously it costs, but it might be a good idea.
Yeah, and I've even seen a couple programs say like, "Oh, we'll do free migration," just from
Oh,
what's
okay.
going on. So, I'm pretty sure, like, Sprout Studio is offering I don't know, I'd have to look,
Yeah.
but I do know that a couple
They're
programs have been
trying to take it up.
offering
Yeah.
yeah, they've been offering some free migration, and so if that's something that you've been thinking or, like, wanna do, that's an option too.
But have
Yeah.
you decided, are you sticking with HoneyBook?
I think right now, I think it's too like, the topic is too fresh, it's too soon,
Mhm.
to be looking at, but,
Mhm.
like, right now like, I also run my business from a place, like, I don't make rash decisions, like, I'm also, like, I'm confident enough in my business and the way I run it and
Mhm.
the decisions I'm empowered in the decisions I'm making, that I don't make rash decisions,
Yeah, that's
and
good.
so I'm not just going to be jumping ship right now because I have everything built out and systems if I've been using for years, and it's not broken, so I'm not gonna fix it. It's not holding me back from booking weddings and making, income in my business, and
Mhm.
so right now, I don't plan on switching. Does that mean in a month or
Right.
so that things might change? I don't know, but right now at the time that this is unfolding and we're recording this, I plan on staying. How about you?
No, that I literally couldn't have said it better. Like for me, I think I said this earlier in the podcast, but for me, I think personally, everything that I use HoneyBook for, it's kind of worth it. Like
Yeah,
it makes
yeah,
sense to me that I would pay that much for what I'm using it for. If I didn't use HoneyBook as much as I do in my business, sure, I'd switch, but to me, it just makes sense. And so, again, as of right now, the cool thing about being an entrepreneur and a business owner is you can switch things whenever you want, right? So if I
Exactly.
decide next month that I want
Yeah,
to switch it, I'll let you know. We can
exactly.
edit this podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so, like, at the time of filming, it sounds like we're both on the same page. We don't plan to right now, but that's not to say if you don't listen to this podcast in a few months and we've changed our mind, that's okay too.
Yeah,
Like, that's what's
absolutely.
cool about this conversation that we're having right now is, like, we're just having a conversation. There's 2 sides to every story. There's no right, there's no wrong. You can make any decision you want to for your business. Just where we're at right now doesn't mean that we're married to it forever.
That's right. Yeah. And again, that's what's cool about being an entrepreneur. We get
Yeah.
to do this kind of stuff.
Exactly, which I love. So I loved this conversation. I think the timing of this was so perfect, Alex.
So
I just think
funny.
it's so funny. You guys, just to say again, is that we already had an episode planned today to talk about HoneyBook. And then we're like messaging each other. We're like, oh, are we still going to talk about HoneyBook? What should we
Like,
do?
funny timing. Interesting.
So we decided to just have a conversation about it.
Yeah. And again, you're invited to this conversation too. Please don't hear like at the end where we're like, okay, yeah, we've decided to stay with HoneyBook. Like, don't hear that as like, okay, so they were really biased talking. Like, no, we want to hear your opinion too. Feel
Yeah,
free to DM us. We'll chat with you about it.
yeah.
We'll read your opinion too, because you're at coffee with us right now?
Exactly, exactly, and that's exactly how I am too, and it's not like I for speaking for myself, I'm not here pushing HoneyBook right now. I'm certainly not. I know how people are feeling, and honestly, I'm like, I just know that it works for me right now, but I can
Hmm.
totally see, empathize, and understand if it's not
Yeah.
for you right now. I can
Yeah.
see that too, so
Yeah.
there's no right or wrong.
That's so good. I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah. You're
yeah.
seen, you're loved, you're
I know.
valued.
Well, I love this, Alex. I'm so glad that you and I finally got to, like, have a conversation, and we are gonna have to have other conversations too about other topics, about educational stuff. We'll have to be on each other's podcasts again because this is just a fun chit chat
I know,
conversation.
I loved it, and it was the first, like, initial friend conversation. Now we're besties,
I
I'll come
know,
visit you soon.
I know, honestly, come over to Wisconsin.
Perfect. Maybe you can come to Charleston, South
You
Carolina. It's a
know
little
what?
warmer down here.
I will 1,000% come down there. You don't come up here, and
Perfect.
it's like -1 degrees right now. It's
Are you
not.
joking?
No, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. It was snowing yesterday. It's like -1 out right now. Yeah, and I don't like cold. I don't like cold.
Yeah.
Why am I
I mean,
here?
I
I'm
think I think it's really cold right now, but it's, like, 50 and sunny out.
what I would do for 50 in sun right now. I don't know why. I live in a place it's like where my family's from, so it's just home for us, but I don't know why we live where we do. I'm such, like, a warm, sunshiny, like, vibed person
Yeah.
that I don't know why I'm here.
Well, you can come and visit
I'll come visit.
anytime.
I'll come visit. Yay. Well, I know this was just a conversation, Alex, but tell everyone, like, where we can find you so we can get connected with you too.
Totally. Well, you can find me anywhere at Alex Blake Photography, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I also have my own podcast. It's Let's Create with Alex Blake. Listen to it anywhere that you listen to podcasts. And I have the video version on YouTube. And then I also have my own educational content weekend called Photo Camp. And the next one is in March. So if you want to get connected with that, you can look at it on Instagram at Photocamp Events, or you can go to photocampinfo.com.
Oh, yeah, there's your pitch. That's amazing, by the way. It all sounds so cool, and yeah, the photo contest, it looks so cool. So we'll make sure to link all the things below so people can find you and find all the cool
Yay.
things.
Thank you.
Yay. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This was so much fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thanks for grabbing coffee with us, guys.
Yes, thank you.